to assault this map. By all reports.
Welcome back, you filthy exiles, and this one's a bit of a theory craft. So you guys would have seen a few weeks ago that or a couple of weeks ago, I put together like a perforate build. I think it was last week, actually. I'm living in a different timeline right now. Anyway, so I did a leveling test with that, and it did pretty well, right? So for anyone who doesn't know how perforate works, in sand stance, it relies on stand switching. Sand stance, you do big AoE, and in blood stance, you do what's called overlap. Now, pretty much where we got to is we have two POBs. So this is our scuffed POB where we got to like level 77. We do 1.3 mil DPS, 44k effective hit pool. We've got like 1.1k like life regeneration, which is pretty wild so early on, 38,000 armor. So it's quite tanky. And there's not really anything in this setup, by the way. So we'll just take that off if we want to, just in case peeps are upset by that. But basically how this build works is our big damage dealing comes from perforate when it's in blood stance. So we do overlap here, and as long as we're overlapping, then basically like the POB calculations just go through the roof. Now, a few other things here. We have time spent stationary. We do use like, what was it? Oh, well, we do have like unstoppable, but we did take that out. I think this build excels at its best when it's doing endurance charge stacking, but you know, there's a lot of things that we haven't really tested on this. And this video is designed just to like give you an idea of like, you know, how you could get perforate jug working at the end of the day. So if you want to take this and run with it, you can. I'm not going to go through like act by act leveling, but I will talk through the POB and all the rest of it. Now I do have an endgame tree here. It gets to like 17.8 million DPS in sand stance, and then in blood stance we get to 43 million DPS because overlap is really, really strong. And we'll talk about this endgame POB shortly as well in the video. So if you want to skip ahead and see how I've scaled that, you can do that. But anyway, for the most, pretty much, yeah, this build cruised through the campaign. Like, the only issues we ran into were when we versed like Izaro in the lab, and the lightning golem was problematic for us, and we overcame that very quickly. The other thing I noticed too is swords, terrible, absolutely horrific, not worth the time. Axes, 2 thumbs up. I'm doing 2 thumbs here. Fantastic. So pretty much you want to level this with axes. You level up from level 1. You just keep pressing it through the campaign as you go. And you will eventually progress through very quickly. I think I did the campaign run in like 7 hours, something like that. So it was very, very quick. It just did not run into challenges in the campaign. Now, the test that you would have seen at the very start is T16. And basically, we've got 5-link axe. Nothing is leveled up. It's all bad. And we pretty much smashed T16 with no real problems. Axe-wise, like, we got a pretty okay DPS axe. One would argue, oh, that's like bait. Not really, because it's very easy to get high DPS axes in the first few days of League because of things like Bone Shatter is probably going to be quite powerful again. And obviously, Sunder and Earth Shatter and all the rest of the stuff that uses axes, slams are very strong. Now, Helm, like, this is, yeah, all the items are pretty bad. Boots are reasonably okay, but like not from an endgame standpoint. They're good for like progression as an intermediate set of boots, but not that great. Flasks, we just got like auto charge flasks and stuff like that. Like you would get this by endgame anyway, and just a life flask to keep us alive at the end of the day. Gloves bad. Chest, we rolled this in campaign. It's just a 4-link. So yeah, like there's a lot of potential for this build to really pop off harshly. And the other big thing is that perforates a slam as well. So that's just something that I found really interesting. Outside of that, like, this is a relatively low-cost build to get started. Like, there's no, like, crazy cluster jewels, there's no crazy jewels, and they're just things that drop throughout the campaign that I could use and make the most of, and then we just spec into, like, axe nodes and all the rest of it. And crit, funnily enough, because we're playing Jug, we have the option to go crit very, very efficiently, and that's partly because of the undeniable node here. Now, you'll also know, I notice I'm absent an ascendancy. Arguably, you could actually use any of the new Bloodline Ascendancies, and they're going to be really strong. Is this going to be really good for delving? I think so, with like Defiance of Destiny and Life Recoup and stuff like that, and Endurance Charge stacking, I think is where this build will really pop off. But I haven't tested any of that yet, so this is like a cursory, like, play this at your own will, but this is a pretty cool build, and I like got it to T16s with like an oily rag, so that should tell you all you need to know about the fact that this build probably does have a fair bit of meat on the bones. So anyway, let's talk about the Scuff POB, then let's talk about the Endgame POB that I've already mapped, and then hopefully, yeah, that'll give you enough theorycraft ideas to go with it and sort of test if you want to test it for the last day, or if you want to gamba, you could, or if you want to ignore this video, no issues there either. And again, I don't know if I'm going to play this on League Start, but I have it here available. I'll probably play it during the League at some point if I don't play it on League Start. Anyway, let's get into some of the details. Okay, so just with like the Scuff setup, we'll talk through. And by the way, this character is like level 76. There's nothing special about it, except it is very strong early on. You wouldn't expect to be doing T16 maps with this, and it can, which is pretty wild. At level 76, you're probably at like T10 to T11 or 12, maybe less. Or you're stuck in like late, like yellow tier maps. So this, if you got it to even close to this power, is going to be quite strong. Now, basically, Helm, I'm really just running Assassin's Mark, Life Tap, War Banner, Mark on Hit. My 5-link setup, Perforate, and by the way, it's like level 15 and 16 support gems here. Brutality, Impale support, Fortify support, and Multi-Strike support. Chest piece, Clarity, and we run Arrogance. This deals with any mana issues, so we don't have to worry about that. It does get a bit mana hungry though, so that's something just to be aware of. And then in our chest, we're running Determination, Leap Slam, Blood and Sand, and Precision. Boots, we're running Blood Rage, Molten Shell, Life Tap, and Automation, because I really like that. Now, there's an argument here that states that, like, we don't necessarily need to have items with sockets, which means this could use some of the Crystal King bloodlines. And that would be really cool if it does, or could. So that's something just to bear in mind. We could take, like, the bloodline. That means we have no sockets in the boots. And basically, we can move around, and our action speed can never be lower than our base action speed, which would mean we'd be quite strong. Anyway, that's something that just comes to mind. Now, yeah, that's pretty much it for gem setups. Now, as far as gear, like Helm, like none of the gear is very well optimized here. Like it's just scuffed gear. pretty much helm, we just want to try and get like resistances wherever we can, and heaps of armor. Same with chest, heaps of armor, life regeneration if possible. Once you get that life regen roll too, if you try and use the 15% node on health nodes, that's not going to work because it's a life modifier. So you're not going to be able to do that. So that's just something to be aware of as well. Axe, you want as high DPS axe as humanly possible or PoE possible. And you want attack speed on the base, so base fizz damage, attack speed, and physical damage. You can usually get like a 600 DPS axe very early on. And it's pretty easy to craft like 450 DPS axes, like fizz DPS axes in the campaign, to be honest with you. So, like, this isn't unachievable by any measure. Really, like, your peak axe, you want to go to like 1.3k DPS. And to be honest with you, that means this POB would be exceptionally higher on the damage scale for the endgame build. But yeah, that's just something to be aware of. Then rings, as many resistances as you can, flat fizz damage if possible, and life recoup would be preferable. Pretty much both rings. And then you want to try and get attributes on and resistances on your amulet, but you don't want to rely on your amulet too much for resistances because that can be problematic when you want to switch to things like Defiance of Destiny and stuff like that later on, or maybe even All's Uprising. Gloves, again, attack speed if you can. Obviously, this is no implicits either, so like this build is very weak compared to the scale of things, but we do T16s like they're nothing. So, or not like nothing, but we do T16s pretty easily. So, I mean to say, there's a lot of upgrades here. And then obviously belt, you want big life regeneration, big life, resistances, ideally chaos resistance, and Bob's your uncle. Early on, you should be able to get multi-resistant belts very easily. And then boots, you want life regeneration rate, regeneration, like flat, life, movement speed, and any other reses you could get, and that's going to be a big thing. Implicits, you want to try and get like endurance charge, damage per endurance charge and stuff like that. I think the answer is to go endurance charge stacker with this, and that's probably what I'm going to try and do. But yeah, that's basically the gear setup. And then you want flask with like, you know, gain charges when you get hit by an enemy, and then eventually you want to switch that out and just go straight flat like Mage Blood and become totally immortal at the end of the day. All right, so the POB that I got, like this is Scuff POB mode, right? So first of all, Ascendancy sequence. I took I took Undeniable first, which gave me pretty good damage, but arguably Untiring might be better, in particular when you're versing like Azara and stuff earlier on. But you could switch between either, just depends on how much damage you want. Unflinching was really useful as well, and I'm probably going to take Unbreakable because bigger armor is more fun at the end of the day. And then pretty much we just come down, we go to Heart of the Warrior, Born to Fight, and Versatility first. Those are in our first like 10 to 15 points. Come down, get Kinetic Impacts. We want 40% increased damage against hits against rare and unique enemies. And this is better than the 60% modifier further down because that 10% speed reduction is a big problem against this build. Then we come all the way across and we grab the Gladiator. We want Unwavering Stance. We also want attributes in Hard Knocks and Proficiency. We come down, we grab Bastion Breaker for early fizz and 10% maximum fizz damage. Down into Wrecking Ball. And then we get the 10% increased armor per red socket node on the main hand weapon as well. We then want Dismembering up into Golem's Blood, and we also want to pick up the Savagery and Vigor because we do get endurance charges, we stack, and obviously we also stack Frenzy charges off of Blood Rage as well at the end of the day, so we have Blood Rage sitting here. Then we come down and we want to get this Disciple of the Unyielding, and this is going to give us a big amount of damage with endurance charges early on. Then we come up, we grab Bloodless. We want the Cannibalistic Rite with 12% mana reservation because our mana becomes a real problem early on as well. Into Harpooner because this is an Impale build. Up into your Axe nodes with Cleaving, Slaughter, and we want the 30% increased damage while in Blood Stance and 15% increased AoE while in Sand Stance. Now, I did try this with Pulverize the level. Don't do that. It's good AoE early on, but damage is just... it drops the damage off far too much, and you need a lot of speed on this build for the blood stance when you're doing Perforate. Then we want Stamina. In a Barbarism, I always grab Hardy because I really like the regeneration, but you can probably drop these nodes off later on. Into Disemboweling with crit multi against unique enemies. Into the Battle Trance with the 1% increased movement per 5 rage. Now, I do have in the final POB 7 plus maximum rage with inherent loss of 20%. It's not a big issue because we generate like a lot of rage because we're going to be hitting a lot anyway. And pretty much when you go into Bloodstance Perforate, you're just going to be like constantly maintaining rage anyway. The idea is to get so tanky we can just face tank the boss or enemy with endurance charge stacking and all the rest of it, that we can just sit there and just go absolutely ham on enemies without any like discretion whatsoever. But that's basically it. That's it for the POB. It's not a complicated POB. It's like a pretty mundane standard melee POB at the end of the day. Okay, so then you'll be asking, like, where do we take this build, Jorgen? Like, how do we get this better? And this is how. So, number one, you want, like, a pretty good axe, right? In this case, we have a crit build. We get a Flesh Ripper because we get the implicit crit. This isn't the best, like, flat damage axe, but this has crit, and crit is important for this build. Now, helm, we want, like, big, chonky helm. By the way, I've crafted these in POB, so you can definitely optimize these. Big armor, mana reservation efficiency, you know the deal. Royal plate, we want like a 4k plate armor, right? By the way, this gets 1.7k life regeneration. This is very tanky. Leviathan gauntlets, I have 20% chance to impale, 5% increased damage per frenzy charge as well. A same thing with Goliath Greaves. We want the 2% life per endurance charge, and we want brittle ground because this is going to give us increased crit at the end of the day. Then we want life regeneration, movement speed, you avoid that while being chilled, and Bob's your uncle. Defiance of Destiny with Charisma Anoint is pretty much the best endgame we're going to get, and that means when we go into Delve, we're going to be very tanky. And then I've got the Amethyst Rings. Now, ideally, these aren't anywhere near perfect. You would want the life recoup roll on both of these, and that's going to make you incredibly tanky. Ideally, they're going to be an early preference, and then eventually you want the +1 to endurance charge and the Calandra's Touch ring, and replicate that ring, and then you're going to have 2 extra endurance charges, which is ideal. This one, I do have a Reslithe's Coil, and it's always a thing to corrupt them, because you can get things like speed, which is what we need. Now I've got Diamond Flask on this, I've got Bottle Faith, I've got Ruby, Sapphire, and Topaz to overcap our resistances, and that's going to make us a lot tankier. That being said, if we could like fit a Basalt in if we didn't have a Bottle of Faith, then that's going to give us like nearly 100k armor at the end of the day, which is what we want. Then large clusters, we got Fuel the Fight, Martial Prowess, and we'll talk about clusters soon and all the jewels. We use things like Storm Shroud as well to deal with ailment immunities, Forbidden Flesh and Flame with Crave the Slaughter. Arguably, we could actually do that with our node here, right? So, or like our Unstoppable node or Unbreakable node. And then instead of allocating the ascendancies, we could allocate that to like one of the Bloodline ascendancies. And that would actually give us a pretty good amount of like potential damage and defense. So, yeah, there's obviously that comes into play. Like these are things that we could do. Natural Affinity, I really like this cluster, so I always recommend to play it. And then just like crit multi Viridian Jewels with life, and these are really basic ones. Thread of Hope and large cluster. Obviously, we got large clusters in here. Now, yeah, that's pretty much it for like the gear in Endgame. Okay, skill wise, funnily enough, like this actually helm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have 5. Are we missing something there? Anyway, okay. So Perforate, 6-link setup, Awaken Brutality, Multi-Strike, Awaken Melee Physical Damage, Ruthless, and Close Combat. These are the best combinations I could come up with. Then in the chest, we're going to run an Aura chest, so Precision, Determination, Pride, Level 3 Enlighten, Blood and Sand, and War Banner. Then in our gloves, we run Automation, Molten Shell, Life Tap, and Rage. Then in our helm, we run Mark on Hit, Assassin's Mark, Life Tap, and Portal. And then in our boots, we're going to run Clarity with Arrogance, Leap Slam, and Faster Attacks. Now, like thinking about this too, we could theoretically do the Crystal King Ascendancy that increases the effect of Determination, and then run Ralakesh boots. And Ralakesh boots count as maximum endurance charges. So that actually doesn't give you endurance charges, it just counts as maximum endurance charges. So technically, if you don't have endurance charges because of those boots, then that means that you would be able to use that ascendancy or that bloodline point potentially, and that would give you a huge increase to damage, to defense. But then we would be skating around the use of anger, and because we use brutality, we would lose damage there, so it's not probably preferable. But anyway, that's just some things to think about when it comes to endgame skill gem setups on this. Okay, and finally the POB. So it's a little bit different to the leveling POB, and this one I theory crafted. So pretty much we come up to Born to Fight, pretty much the same as usual. We want to skip past the life nodes here. We do get like 4.4k life, so we still have a pretty decent life pool for a jug. Then we're going to get the Forbidden Flesh jewel in here. We come down attribute points, we get Bastion Breaker. I do have Fortify nodes in here, I found to be like pretty good because this means we have Fortify. Obviously, that makes us a lot stronger and defensive, even though it says 134k, we got Defiance of Destiny, so we're still pretty tanky. And then we come down, we get Bastion Breaker. We also want to come across, get Golem's Blood. We use a Massive Ring Thread of Hope, and we get Dismembering, we get Brutal Skewering. We pick up Savage Skewering, Courage, and Graceful Assault, and this is going to give us Onslaught. Have we got Onslaught ticked on? Yeah, we do. And then we also want to pick up the Vigor and the Savagery nodes here. We get rid of these nodes down here. We don't really need them because we've got damage coming from other sources. Down into Wrecking Ball. Large clusters, obviously we've got Vicious Skewering, Fuel the Fight, and Martial Prowess. Into Basics of Pain and Pressure Points with a Watcher's Eye that gives us 2 additional hits with Impales and flat physical reduction as well. Despite that's probably not doing that much to the effective hit pool, so we could come up with a better use of that Watcher's Eye. And then we come up, we grab Steadfast, in a Bloodless. We then grab Inexorable and the Armor Mastery. The reason why we would grab this is because later down the track, you're actually going to get rid of the Endurance Charge node, even though that would probably be better to a degree. We still have to compensate for things here. So yeah, Unbreakable is just 31,000 effective hit pools, can't be beaten, and Unstoppable is unstoppable. Now, arguably, we could use the Crystal King Ascendancy, but we would still like need to spec into Unflinching on that basis, so it doesn't really help us. Then we come up to Cannibalistic Rite, Mana Mastery, Harpooner, the Axe nodes with Slaughter and Axe Mastery, Stamina, our other Forbidden Flesh, a Barbarism, into our crit nodes with Disemboweling, increased maximum rage with Battle Trance, 7+ rage, another Vicious Skewering and Feel the Fight node. We've got our like our standard like jewels in here with crit multi, into Nature's Patience. Then we go up into Devotion and into Storm Shroud with Endurance Charge. Now, arguably we could also go Divine Shield and stack some ES on our gear, and then we could run like a Glorious Vanity setup as well, which is also an option that we could exercise. But if we could get into here too, we get more effective hit pool when we increase and overcap our resistances, and right now we're at 81, 80, 80, and 72. So there's a lot of defensive layering that could be added to this build to make it even stronger. But this is the theory crafted POB that I made. So if you want to use it and basically work to that in the end game, then by all means, be my guest. And yeah, like this is my theory crafted POB. Obviously the big thing is graphs gives us another layer of power that we haven't even considered in this build, so it could be very, very much higher than what it actually is here. But again, like if you guys want to see me play this on League Start, then chuck it in the poll that's on the post in the channel. And yeah, anyway, this is like my theory crafted like level test to Perforate Jug. And you could do this on Zerka, just be far less tanky. You could even do this on Slayer and you'd be relying on Leech, but yeah, it'd be very, very strong. Yeah, so I'll give you the POBs below and you can play around with it. And I'll just give you the Scuff Gear POB and also the Endgame Theory Crafted POB. And yeah, have fun. If you like videos like this, don't forget to like and sub to the channel as well. It's always fun like coming up with these different build iterations and things like that, because yeah, this one was a lot of fun to put together. But I am doing an SST Slayer test, and to be honest with you, that's really good as well. But yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys on the stream and whatnot. But don't forget to like and sub to the channel and all the rest of the stuff, the Twitch and all that. And I'll see you guys on stream a little bit later on, and have a good one all.